Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbaugh.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I have somebody on the show today who really exemplifies the whole human aspects of being successful at the customer experience. Brannon Beliso was born and raised in San Francisco with 4 younger sisters, and his upbringing wasn't the typical one. It was riddled with a lot of issues that many would think that you could not overcome. But now Brannon is the disruptor. He's dedicated to helping others live their best life. His purpose and passion is serving his clients and reaching their full potential through learning, living, and growing. Brannon is an 8th degree black belt, a former recording artist with 3 top 10 hits in the Philippines, owner of One Martial Arts, one of the most successful schools in the martial arts industry, and the creator of One Merit Badges, an internationally distributed life skills education system. The professor, as Brannon is also known, humbly presents workshops and seminars successful in the martial arts world and beyond with the mindset that we can always do and be better. He is committed to being a student for life and is a dedicated father, husband, and servant to the community. Brannon's popular book, Live, Learn, Grow, Lessons of a Reluctant Tiger, portrays his struggles and victories and the insights that moved him forward step by step. He shares these experiences and the wisdom they've produced to help his tribe find their why. Service is the new profit. Brannon's mantra helps him focus his clients to find happiness and success without focusing in on money. Brannon currently lives in Millbrae, California with his wife Kimberly and his kids Taya and Braden. Brannon Beliso, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
Yes, sir, Jim. I'm ready to get you over the hump. I like that.
I appreciate that. And I'm glad you're here. I appreciate that you're here. Now, I've given my Legion a little bit about you, but can you share what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Well, you made that statement, service is the new profit. Once I really discovered that service was my calling and becoming selfless and becoming less of a boss, less of a controller, and more of a true leader, a contemporary leadership where service is my foundation, everything shifted.
So for me, I am a lot into customer experience, employee experience, and I always talk about the human-centric aspects of running a business. And, you yourself, were a champion and then became the teacher and mentor. And I'm sure you were doing that along the way. But now as a business, as somebody who is, helping others grow their businesses, how much do you feel that the service aspects, versus the experience aspects are really, related, or where do they differ?
I don't think they differ. I think they're one and the same. And that's where people really compartmentalize and separate that, Jim. It's one and the same. And if we can view it that way, then we'll get that sense of continuity that we need throughout every aspect of not just our business, but our lives. Because I truly believe consistency is the key to quality. Here's a quick thing about that. Go to my favorite restaurant, order my favorite dish. They make it the way I like it. I go back again. If they don't make it right the second time, I might give you a third shot. Third time it's wrong, I never come back again. So when you talk about that experience, think about Disney. And Disney's, one of the companies I've studied inside and out. They're very consistent in their delivery of that customer experience, that Disney experience.
So as I was reading through your book, I started, really getting an understanding of all the struggles and issues, and both from a family perspective as well as being in the system, through the childcare system, and is that there's a whole lot of emotion that's involved with these things that don't go our way, right? And how we respond to those is extremely important. And your book is just lesson after lesson and vignette and story that has truth and relevance to it. And most of them are your own personal experiences. But when you start talking about emotion and the service, experience, when you think about that from, hey, you can't make everybody happy. I mean, how do you go about turning an idea, a new startup when you're opening up a new location? How do you turn that into grabbing and capturing emotion so that you can create long-term clients?
That's good. I was just thinking that, Jim. I think everything, the way the process goes, everything begins as a thought. Now, thought by itself means nothing. I woulda, coulda, shoulda. It's only when we tie emotion to it that is the inertia, that is the fuel, that emotion that inspires us to take action. And from the action, I get a result. Anyone can walk around, I need to lose 20 pounds. Well, they have a massive heart attack and the doctor's looking at them. All of a sudden, the emotional connection that I could die tomorrow is there. They're more likely to act upon that and change their diet and exercise. So emotion is key, but emotion without discipline, emotion without vision, emotion without an action plan of moving your business, a startup or anything, what it's going to look like in 3 to 5 years is simply a dog chasing its tail. We can sit in a room together, Jim, and go rah, rah, rah with a lot of emotion, but that emotion eventually needs to be channeled, in some constructive way. And that's where the vision, the purpose, designing the culture, core values, brand absolutes, all those different things that come with growing a business come into play.
So as you were talking, I started thinking too about, an organization that may be around for a long time, and you know what, we've been doing things the same way for decades, and we've been very successful with that. And so it's become part of, who we are. However, now I have all this competition. I have, this total different generation of people, of workforce. I have to disrupt myself. That has emotion involved with it. So, how can I be focused enough to say, I can't hold on, because there's emotion with that. I can't hold on to what we've been doing because we now must do some things differently.
Well, and when I look at that, say companies like Nokia, companies like the good guys, can you say Blockbuster, all gone. Once great companies because they stopped focusing on the why. Why are we doing this? And we hear that it's so trendy, the why. And if you read the great book by Simon Sinek, starting from the why, and Good to Great by Jim Collins, no matter what products change, business climates change, trends change, the one thing that will fundamentally stay the same are your core values, are that why. And if I'm constantly revisiting that why, living from that why, refining that why, then all it is a matter of tweaks and adjustments. And if you really, really think about it, take a great product like Apple. It's still fundamentally the same MacBook Pro, same iPhone, same iPad. They haven't done anything revolutionary in decades now, right? It's still iPhone 10.0, it's iPad Pro, it's MacBook with a faster processor. But what they really fundamentally got, and this is important, people. So the Legion, as they're called out there, take note of this. When Steve Jobs came back the second time, what he had learned the first time in that coup, when they squeezed him out and got rid of them, what they lacked was loyalty. What they lacked was culture. Nobody drank the Kool-Aid. So what he did with the second coming, he brought in Guy Kawasaki, the chief spiritual officer, as he was called. He wore white. He almost looked like a pastor or a priest. And his whole purpose was to live, teach, and preach the culture of Apple, right? So people drank the Kool-Aid. That's why you'll stand in line all night for a phone you can get 2 days later and walk into the store. And Steve Jobs, God bless his soul, long and gone, Apple just became $1 trillion company. So I think that's what really fundamentally happens is we get away from our why. We start living from fear, Jim, and we focus on, the bottom line. And then we become marketers instead of ambassadors of the why.
That's a really interesting point, because when I start thinking about, the whole marketing piece, and the ambassador piece, I start thinking about a lot of those guys and ladies who you're trying to help, build, their businesses. They're in different parts of the country, maybe probably even different parts of the world. And they're having to really essentially connect with parents in order for those kids to become students, of their, what do you guys call them? Dojos? You call them?
Yeah, dojos, academies, martial arts schools. Okay. They're all, but the big thing is martial arts, dry cleaner, restaurant. We are a service-based business. And that's what we tend to forget. It's all about service.
So from the service aspect, I've always wondered, is there something different that's involved when you start talking about, I'm not selling to the kid, that's essentially my end user. I'm teaching the kid, but I'm selling to the parent. Is there something that's lost in translation, or is there something you have to do different?
Absolutely. The majority of martial arts schools are one guy, mom and pop, maybe 75 students or less. That makes up 75% of our industry. So they've created a job for themselves. They're a terrible boss. And that perpetuates itself. I think the big thing is recognizing there's different skill sets. And I'll answer your question, but I want to give you this first. They're technicians, like they talk about in E-Myth. Gerber talked about there's so many technicians. That's one skill set. I'm a black belt. Great. Guess what? You need a new skill set to be a great instructor. That's not enough. Now you need a whole different skill set to be a great small business owner, and then eventually a whole different skill set to be an entrepreneur. What I recognized early on when I say service is the new profit is I'm serving my parents. And we know for a fact, marketers, 99% of the people will come to your website and they are not ready to buy. They're not ready to buy. So they don't want to be sold to. But because we're in fear, Jim, I got to make rent. I got 75 students. I got to make rent. I got to make payroll. I have to do all these things that we never get to the why. And we live and market and behave from the what are we? A martial arts school. Well, they're a dime a dozen. So it's really me as a parent. I need to know what separates you from everybody else. And if you focus your business on earning that trust, which takes time, which takes a lot of investment, instead of just simply, hi, $19.99. Those cheap promo Black Friday things might be a quick one-off, but it's not something you can build a sustainable, growth-oriented business on. It just isn't. Look at Walmart. Look at the position Walmart's in now. They built it upon good, cheap products, right? But now, with all the lawsuits and stuff going with the Walmart, classic example.
So, your book is just riddled for me with, teachings of emotional intelligence. I also see that there's a couple things involved with this. Is first of all, that personal drive and aspect of it, meaning you knew that you could not respond to things a certain way. You went down that path. It didn't go well. Luckily, you were able to turn the tide. But then also there was some aptitude and ability to be able to do that. So when you start talking about a lot of the different folks that you're dealing with, do you find, because you talk about, hey, they're great technicians, so they have to become a more emotionally intelligent in order to have successful businesses. Do you find that there is a problem with people's ability to be able to execute on those things? Like they just don't have the ability to do it, or it's a willingness thing?
Well, I'd say it all the time to any client I'm working with, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's a company, whether it's a martial arts school, is there's nothing I can't give you can't give yourself. There really isn't. But I get it. In our industry, you start off as a white belt. You stand in line and you look at your instructor and you want to please them. Yes, sir. How many kicks? How many push-ups? Whatever you say. In my case, it was my dad. He was my instructor, my dad, my coach. He told me when to eat, sleep, how much to weigh, what to do in a ring. So I was disciplined. And many people in life are disciplined, but they've never learned or mastered the life skill of self-discipline. Huge difference. One thing is to discipline a child. A whole different day is to empower them with self-discipline, teaching them that tool, that life skill. So I think that's really what our culture lacks as a whole, is that we lack self-discipline. We've been disciplined. And now there's a revolt. People revolt against discipline, or they fall in line like sheep being led to slaughter and simply stare into their phone and, distract themselves with something else. And I think that's the big challenge. When I talk about that disruptive mindset, it's not so much the willingness as it is the awareness, Jim. People lack the awareness because I can get lost in my phone. I sat there in the lobby yesterday and I scanned the room, and I kid you not, everybody was staring into a phone. Everybody. And that's scary. That's really scary.
It is it is true. And you brought up one thing that for me, I'm glad you did, because in the book you talked about, the saying that goes something to the effect of, if you want to eat omelets, you have to be okay with breaking a couple of eggs, right?
Yeah, all the time.
So when you start talking about, this self-discipline aspect, when you start, going to being able to learn how to become resilient, when you learn how to achieve, when you talk about, interacting and connecting with other people, sometimes you're going to have some broken eggs and you need to be able to push past that. So if I'm a person who's always been disciplined too, how do I really get past that fear of, gosh, I might break an egg or two?
I think, again, living from some of my core values, number one is humility. Right. And people in a Western culture hear the word humility and they run because they automatically triggers humiliation. I'm being humiliated. No, you're not. A humble heart is very powerful. Another one for me is gratitude. I'm thankful. And if I don't get along with you, I'm going to take what I learned and be thankful we interacted for a moment, a minute, a day. And of course, empathy. Seek to understand versus being understood. Today's contemporary leader leads by example. Today's contemporary leader, like that picture at Facebook, old leadership, he's cracking the whip and everyone's pushing the boulder. Contemporary leadership, the leader's right up against that boulder with them. So if I'm right up against that boulder with my team, pushing that rock, I'm more empathetic to their challenges than their needs beyond our business. And I think that's very important with today's leadership. So you could be disciplined and I could be disciplined. And if we meet at a level of humility, we meet at a level of empathy, and we're both grateful for this moment we have right now, Jim, you and I will learn a lot.
Very much so. And I appreciate that perspective and talking about the discipline piece. And I started thinking about too, I had this question the other day talking about emotion and how important it is to everything that we've been talking about in a lot of different ways and our response to certain things. However, our brain gets hijacked when we get in emotional stress. And we know, and we've experienced this ourselves, like when we get into a heated discussion or some things just aren't going right and we just feel like we're getting bombarded. And we can't think of certain things. Our IQ drops tremendously because the whole emotion takes over. So do you feel that actually becoming disciplined in the martial arts has helped you not have times where your emotions hijack your thinking?
Only time I get hijacked is when my 6 and 9-year-old are fighting. That's the only time my emotions get hijacked because it makes me and my wife crazy. Other than that, what I've recognized about that process is when you feel those emotions start to take over you, what do most people do? They run, they sedate, they drink, they avoid, they become a victim. They live from the victim mindset. When I'm faced with something like that, now, let's just take social media. If it's somebody I don't know and you call them the trolls, the haters, whatever, and they attack me at Facebook, I simply love them, I block them, and I delete them. I've really recognized to focus on my life, what matters most versus what doesn't matter. And I think as a culture, we focus on what doesn't matter. That's why they sell millions of copies of The Inquirer. People like to focus on other people's drama because it makes their drama not look so bad. And if it's somebody great like a Tiger Woods or some really rich actor, they go, hey, I don't have it so bad. That guy's got all that money. He's more screwed up than me. But it still doesn't cure what's there. So we sedate, we distract, we avoid. But really what we should do is embrace it like a best friend, because we can only heal with love, Jim. So if I have something that's adverse in front of me, I at least want to recognize it, let them go with love, because I'm not responsible for how you think, how you behave. I'm busy dealing with my space. So I recognize that I can't control people, places, or things, but can I make the conscious choice in that moment so I don't get overwhelmed to simply say, hey, it's cool. You think the way you do, rock and roll, but this is the way I think. And if we can't agree to disagree, then I love block and delete. Because life is short, life is precious. So to spend time around people, Jim, that matter, I think is really important.
I think those are great valuable points. Now, although we were talking about it, and I even said it on several occasions, is it's just filled with emotion. One of the things that we look at on the show are quotes to help give us emotion, hopefully point us in that right direction. Is there a quote or two that you like that you can share?
There's many. Dalai Lama is one of the people I embrace tremendously because his spiritual and humanistic attributes balance my business mindset. And he explains that it's easy to be great when things are going your way. Can you be great when life is difficult? That's what builds character. That's what makes us better people. Gandhi's got a great one where he speaks about it. And I'm just, I'm not getting all the words right, that the customer is not dependent upon us. We are dependent upon him. He is not, a burden on our business. He's an attribute. And if we begin to recognize that, we treat people differently. Anytime somebody on my team says, this is my boss, I go, whoa, time's up, pencils down. I am not your boss. The clients are the boss. They simply pay me money and I distribute it amongst the team. But don't for 1 minute think I am your boss. I am not your boss. I am your teammate. So, some of those sayings are really important. I love the one by, I think it's Lao Tse, that if you're living in the past, you're depressed. If you're living in the future, you're anxious. If you're in the present moment, you're at peace. So I spend a lot of time and learning and practice being right here, right now. And I think that's a big part of my success and happiness.
Well, and that success and happiness, as I kind of mentioned earlier, didn't necessarily come from a place where that is cultivated and grown.
No.
You chose to go into, another direction and field and not be stuck in that. And so there's a lot of humps that you've gotten over, and you shared tons of them in the book. But is there one that you can actually share with the Fast Leader Legion where we could learn?
I think you've done that for me through this whole conversation, Jim. Choice. But I think for me as a child, and I was sharing this with one of my clients the other day, as a child, I had no choice. I had no choice when I was put in a foster home at 11 months. I had no choice when I was molested. I had no choice when I was, beaten by my father. I had no choice. I was a victim. But eventually, at some point, Brannon the man had to make the better choices in his life or continue to be a victim. So I recognized that achievements and success are two different things. I was a state champion. I had 3 top 10 hits, and I was the most unhappy person in the world. So I recognized that the bigger house, the bigger car, more money wasn't going to make me happy. What was going to make me happy was taking that journey inward, finding a place of, why am I here? What am I here for? Not to buy a bigger car, not to add more zeros on my bank account. And I'm very grateful. Don't get me wrong. We do very, very well. And I have everything that I want and possibly could need. But what I need most is myself. And if you have that, as far as leadership goes, that's the best example to offer your team and anybody.
I think what you're talking about too, from that perspective, talking about the leader perspective, is there was a particular study that I'm just recalling in my head where talking about the frontline leaders and the people who are on the front line. Only like 33% of those people who are on the front line feel that their immediate frontline supervisor is actually competent. And I think with what you were just talking about is that if you have that sense of self and that awareness and the humility and all those other things, that is going to project a totally different type of presence that I think that whole concept of competency is going to be thrown out the window. People are going to feel that you're competent.
Well, especially with today's true entrepreneur. I mean, I'm in my businesses 16 hours a month. For me to walk in there and throw the boss card around is insane. The autonomy I grant my team is tremendous. I trust them. They're in the trenches every day. I need their feedback. I need their input. I need that because I'm not there. Sure, I've written the systems and the processes and I've established the culture and they run it, but a classic example is, I would never walk into a room and demand and tell people I'm the boss. I don't walk into my business and say, hi, how you doing? I'm the owner. I would never do that. It's just, it's not in line with today's values. And when you're dealing with millennials and Zs, they're totally revolting against that sense of control and command leadership, which perpetuated itself, World War II. Right? Because we had all the factories. I had the, higher management, the floor managers, and the worker bees on the assembly line. I get that hierarchy, that pyramid. We run with a flatline management. We don't have titles. Nobody calls me the boss. And we all coexist and kind of serve each other. And so I think that creates the culture that we have at our businesses.
Well, I would dare to say that you're going to find that's going to be the culture that many, many organizations are going to have to, I don't want to say revert to, but let's just say transition into in order for them to keep the top talent that is going to exist within those, millennial and Z generations.
Well, and there's a lot of talent there. And I think as we get older, we need to stop dismissing each new generation as incompetent or lesser than because they do have a cell phone. Some people will say, well, the problem is we don't have critical thinkers today, Jim, because I can simply Google it. The other day I said to my son, he was writing a report on Walt Disney. I said, well, tell me about Walt. He goes, Alexa. I said, no. Don't ask Alexa. I want you to tell me. So I think that's the challenge with technology is I can simply Google it and then watch a YouTube video and then it becomes lore. But so what's bred out of people is that critical thinking, those thought leaders that we need more and more and more. But if we can really utilize and leverage technology to do the mundane, to automate those many tasks that we don't need to spend our process on, but not turn around and start playing video games and not turn around and go to Snapchat or Instagram, but really recognize I have this different kind of freedom because of technology and really integrate yourself on a whole nother level of learning, of leadership. It's going to change tremendously. Look at Zappos, look at Apple, look at Facebook. I'm right in Silicon Valley, so I get to witness this on a daily basis, that movement towards a culture-driven tribe of raving fans, of people that drank the Kool-Aid, that get it, is really the movement, because that's where purpose and passion lives. You keep talking about that heart level, that emotion. People aren't driven by data. Sit with a bunch of Zs and millennials and go, third quarter report earnings. They're going to go, what? That doesn't happen.
That's very true. Okay, so I know you got a lot of things going on. You got the book, speaking, coaching, of course, teaching. Building a business. You got two young kids. There's a lot of things that are going on. But if you talk about one goal, just one, what is it?
To continue to find more ways to spend with my kids. I mean, that's really it. I've reduced the level of speaking gigs. I'm staying closer to home. As I shared this summer, I think I worked 3 hours this whole summer. Other than a few podcasts here and there, I disciplined myself to spend 3 months consistently with my kids, especially because they're out all summer. I'm home every night at 6:30 for dinner. I help with homework. I go to soccer. And people say, well, that's pretty mundane for somebody with all your accomplishments. I said, let's get this straight. Achievements and success, Jim, are two different things. I've got tons of trophies. They sit up in the attic. I have tons of awards. None of them hang on the wall, because I don't want to live in the past. So today, what I need to do is be successful. And success today for me is to find more ways and time to spend with my family.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. Need a powerful and entertaining way to ignite your next conference, retreat, or team building session? My keynotes don't include magic, but they do have the power to help your attendees take a leap forward by putting emotional intelligence into their employee engagement, and customer-centric leadership practices. So bring the infotainment creativity of the Fast Leader Show to your next event, and I'll help your attendees get over the hump now. Go to beyondmorale.com/speaking to learn more. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Brannon, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Brannon Beliso, are you ready to hoe down?
Yes, sir, Jim. I'm ready.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Time management.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Lead by example.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
My personal faith.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Gratitude.
What would be one book that you'd recommend to our listeners? It could be from any genre. And of course, we'll put a link to Live, Learn, and Grow on your show notes page as well.
Yes, other than my book, I would recommend everybody read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber and The Mindset by Carol Dweck.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Brannon Beliso. Okay, Brannon, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you've been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you. But you can't take everything. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
Humility. I mean, back in my 20s, I was so full of myself, so much ego, so much bravado that came with that age and that time. Being a state champion, a recording artist, just at the top of everything, I lacked humility tremendously. And if I was more humble, I would have been more grateful and appreciated everything in that process, in that time of my life.
Brannon, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Yes. Social media, of course. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, please. Instagram. You can find me everywhere. And of course, at BrannonBeliso.com.
Brannon Beliso, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Woo-hoo! Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.